The Moscow Mule made ginger drinks popular again, but let's face it, vodka and ginger beer is just the start of what you can do with ginger drinks. And I want to introduce you to the original ginger ale, which was popular back in the 1800s and the early 1900s, and is vastly different than today's pale ginger ale. But it also sets up the battle of Ireland versus Canada in the world of ginger ale, and I think you'll be really surprised at what ginger ales tasted like back in the 1800s. So I'm going to show you how to make it today. So let's get started. I'm Darcy O'Neill, this is Art of Drink. The first thing we should talk about is what's the difference between ginger beer and ginger ale. And most of the internet gets it wrong. The reality is that there's almost nothing different than them other than the difference between fermentation and artificial carbonation. And even if you go back to old soda manuals and flavor manuals like Salt's in the 1800s or 1880s, he mentions that one is fermented, ginger beer, and then the other one's artificially carbonated, but they both depend on the same types of flavors. So obviously ginger root, and both can use dried ginger or fresh ginger, and most often incorporate lemon. Lime's often found in them. You'll find bitter orange or orange oil in them, and various other flavors. Ginger beer tends to be more basic with lemon and ginger ale is far more complex, and that's why I want to focus on ginger ale. Now in the early 1900s, there was two types of ginger ale. There was the Belfast imported variety and the pale variety. Now, Joseph Cantrell invented Belfast ginger ale in 1850, and that company still exists today. I believe it's Cantrell and Cochrane, and they still make soda. But they don't make the Belfast ginger ale like they used to, as far as I know. There are some places that are trying to recreate it, but I'm going to show you how to make it today. And it was popular up until about the 1920s. But what happened is a pharmacist in Toronto, Canada named John McLaughlin created Canada Dry. Now this is a pale ginger ale, and it has a few differences than the Belfast ginger ale. But this one seems to have won for the last 100 years or thereabouts. But I think in modern terms, where we're looking for things to replace alcohol, at least non-alcoholic drinks, or recreate historical drinks, Belfast ginger ale is where we need to look. Now I do have recipes for pale ginger ale, and one of the key things is that they don't use capsaicin or capsicum powder, which is from hot peppers. And Belfast ginger ale did, and it was because they wanted the heat. Now when we talk about heat, obviously if you've watched the ginger syrup recipe, you'll know that ginger compounds, gingerol, break down in water and acid and form a less pungent flavor. And bottlers knew that back in the 1800s. So that's why they used hot pepper. And there are a lot of recipes that for ginger beer and ginger ale that didn't use actually any ginger. They just used hot pepper. And that's because that's what this provides. Now we're doing it proper, and we're going to use ginger in it, and that's what the Belfast recipes, they're basically copycat or clone recipes from the 1800s. I don't think anybody really knows what the original Belfast ginger ale recipe was, though pharmacists and flavorists back in the 1800s were very adept at recreating formulas. They were just really in tune with what was in these things. So they probably did a pretty good job of recreating it, and I have a couple of those recipes, and we're going to do one today. You'll find lemon in some of the recipes and orange oil. So these are bitter oranges. They're hard to get. If you can't get them, obviously you can use bitter orange oil, which is really cheap. You can usually get it at culinary stores, but I'll have recipes on Art of Drink and listed below, and you can pick which one works for you if you're so inclined to make this. Now the other important ingredients are cinnamon and nutmeg. Now these ingredients go back a long way. So you'll actually find them in a product called aromatic tincture, and that comes from the German pharmacopoeia. I believe it was around 1825. And it's a combination of nutmeg, cinnamon, and orange oil. And this flavor combination here finds its way into Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and ginger ale. For some reason, people seem to really enjoy this combination. And what they do is at the pharmacies, they'd mix the three ingredients, add sugar to it to create a syrup, and then they'd add that to bad tasting medicines to basically cover them up. And that is where soda fountain syrups originally come from, was these sweeteners they used to actually cover up the flavor of bad medicine. So you will find cinnamon, nutmeg, and orange in a lot of recipes, and it comes from the early 1800s as a flavor masking compound. Now beyond that, vanilla would find its way into ginger ale, but the three secrets, and there are three secrets that they've had to dig up about Belfast ginger ale, are: the first secret of Belfast ginger ale was the use of rose. So rose essential oil, distilled, steam distilled. Now this stuff, it smells like grandma's high tea time, and it has that old-fashioned perfume smell, and it's quite intense in its concentrated form. But when you dilute it out into a tincture, it has more of a berry aroma, especially when incorporated with other fruity ingredients. So roses are related to pear trees and apple trees and hawthorns. So you can eat rose. It doesn't taste good. Eating petals doesn't seem like fun, but it is edible, and you can work it into flavorings. And it's quite common in both Canada Dry, or the pale ginger ales, and the Belfast ginger ale. Now the second secret ingredient is cognac oil. And this comes from brandy production. And what they do is they distill off the brandy or the cognac. But then they have the lees left in the pot. And what they do is they distill that until a small amount of oil comes out. And it's basically the same oil that gives cognac and brandy their flavors, as well as wine. It's quite expensive if you buy it by the steam distilled method. And 5 to 10 mils can run you $75. Or you can buy ethyl heptanoate, which is just the chemical name for an ester that gives cognac its flavor. Now cognac oil is one of my favorite ingredients to work with. It gives that wine, brandy flavor, and you need a very small amount of it. So they'd use 8 drops in a gallon of syrup. But you can actually work it right into the essence we're going to make. And it gives this wonderful, not necessarily grape aroma, but more of that cognac aroma or wine aroma. Wine's a good one to compare it to, but I think this has a much bigger place in non-alcoholic drinks in the future because it gives similar flavor profiles without the alcohol. The third secret is aging. And what they do is they make their extract or essence from all these ingredients, and then they'd age it for a year. Actually, Verner's in Michigan used to age theirs up to 4 years. And what happens is, what's described in the old texts is that the flavors come together and create something that's unique. There isn't one flavor that stands out. And that's what like Coca-Cola does and Pepsi. When people see the ingredients for that, they're kind of confused because it is technically a citrus drink, but it doesn't taste like that. Same thing with ginger ale is that the aging seems to bring the flavors together, but what's happening is there's some chemical change going on in there that creates a more unified or unique flavor. And so that was one of the big keys to all of this, was aging. Now that you know the 3 secrets, let's talk about making it. For this recipe, you're going to need 90 grams of dried ginger root, powdered fairly finely. You're going to need 30 grams of orange peel. You can either use bitter orange or sweet orange. You can use fresh or dried. You'll need 9 grams of nutmeg powder, 9 grams of cinnamon powder, 6 grams of lime peel, 4 grams of vanilla. Take a bean and basically chop it fine. And then you'll need 1.5 grams of capsicum. I use cayenne pepper, but you can use any pepper. Just remember that if it's a hot pepper, so a ghost chili, your Scoville units are going to go way up. So be aware that you can really adjust the heat using different peppers. You'll also need 1/4 drop of rose oil, and you'll optionally need 16 drops of cognac oil. You'll also need 240 mils or 8 ounces of high-proof ethanol. Everclear works good at 95%. But if you only have vodka, it will work as well, but you're going to get a much cloudier extract. Now you can macerate this, but if you do macerate it, you're going to need a filter. I do recommend a vacuum filter because this stuff is so fine. All your powdered spices are really, really fine. And it just makes filtering through a coffee filter an absolute pain. You can get this set up for $75 and it's self-filtering. If you're ever going to get into the soda fountain, as I say in pretty much every video I use this, it's just worth your time and effort to invest in it. And then it will open up the whole world of soda fountain flavors. So once your alcohol is percolated through, you can collect it, and you'll get about 8 ounces. You'll probably need 10 to 12 ounces of alcohol to get this 8 ounces because some obviously gets absorbed by the ginger. If you want to get all of it out, just pass some water through. It will push the alcohol out, and then when you get 8 ounces to 9 ounces, then your waters come through. But it will end up being this very dark colored syrup, or syrupy extract. And that's your ginger ale extract. And then what you're going to do, you're going to take 1 ounce of this extract and you're going to add it to 1 liter of simple syrup. And then you're going to end up with 1 liter of ginger ale syrup. And then it's simple. All you're going to do, you can add caramel coloring to that too. Just to give it some color. Otherwise it'll come out quite pale, and that's fine. You don't have to add caramel coloring, though it does add some color and it does help emulsify the oils. Now it will be cloudy. It's not terribly cloudy. There are methods to make this clear, but they do tend to take out some of the ginger flavor. But I will leave the aesthetics up to you. If you want to know more about clarifying this, you can check out the essence video that I did previously, and you use magnesium carbonate with some shaking on this extract for about 7 days. Just add an ounce to this, shake it daily, and then filter it, and it'll come out clear. You'll end up having clear syrups. But to actually make a ginger ale is pretty simple. We're going to serve this solid as they would have at the soda fountain. That means no foam, or as little foam as possible. So you get roughly 7 ounces into a glass, and you take your syrup and then you add 1 ounce. And then you give it a little spin. And if you want, you can top up with a little more soda water if you want to bring it to the top, but that would be serving solid as they did at the soda fountain. The reason they did this was that ice will take out all the carbonation, and the whole idea was to have it highly carbonated because that was the enjoyable part. So let's see how this came out. So it definitely does have more of a, you can taste the ginger in there. It probably needs more heat. So you could probably go up to 2 to 3 grams of this if you want it spicier. And again, any spiciness level is completely up to you. If you're really into spicy foods, feel free to, add way more if you need to. This is a good ginger ale. The difference between this and the Canada Dry product is that this is just spicier. The ginger is still fairly mild, and again, that has to do with the amount of ginger oils you can actually get into water, so in simple syrup. But it is good tasting, it is different, but it still tastes like ginger ale. So that's the base recipe. You can obviously modify it any way you want. For me, after doing this original recipe, I would definitely add more heat. So I'd bring that up to a couple, 3-4 grams, maybe double it. And then add more rose oil. But no, you can actually smell it, so maybe not. It will take a little bit because I'm going to let this age. Well, I'm going to put this in the bottle and let it age for a year and see what happens. So we'll talk again in a year. But this is the start of making your own ginger ale. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.